G'day there, Simon I Breath addressing you here today. So I've just been looking at Facebook as I do a lot, and a friend of mine mentioned about the need to have focus, the difficulty that many seem to be having with this, and I don't know that this is a new problem. It's probably a very old problem, but irregardless of that, here we are today in our situation, and it always takes a concerted effort to spiritually focus regarding techniques of meditation. And what is meditation? What's meditation about anyway? It's about recharging, isn't it? Recharging your spiritual battery. What is your spiritual battery? It could be called your soul. It is another body, and in Toltec, Carlos Castaneda language, it's called the double, which is the second body, and the second body is an energy body which can be made to look like this physical body, and I'm not sure 100% whether it looks like that by default or not, but it's common for the energy body to be presented as a replica of the physical body. Famous set of books called The Life and Teachings of the Masters in the Far East by Baird T. Spalding, published in the very early 1900s, about travels by he and his colleagues. I think they are Rosicrucians. They travelled throughout Tibet mostly, also places in India, and they were escorted by human beings who were able to appear quite easily in their doubles, their energy bodies, which to all intensive purposes didn't look any different from the bodies of flesh and blood. Some of them still had bodies of flesh and blood, and there is a story of one of them who had left his physical body lying in front of a village somewhere to ward off wild animals, and he went back there to retrieve his physical body, and then by that stage it had been lying there in the grass or on the ground for maybe a few months, and it was rather overgrown with stuff. So he just re-entered his physical body, reanimated his physical. It wasn't dead. The Silver Cord, Lobsang Rampa. If you haven't read any of his books, he talks about the Silver Cord, but other people have also spoken about the Silver Cord quite a bit as well. Silver Cord remains attached somehow, and even though it's like it can stretch endlessly. You can travel in your double to beyond the solar system, and the silver cord just keeps elongating. So this is what really meditation is really about. It's about reconnecting with the energy body, and also increasing the energy of the energy body as well, by connecting with the divine source of all energy the eternal life, which there are various names for, of course, God being the famous word used in the English language. So, in order to be able to make the connection with divine source of life, the eternal supply, and eternal means timeless. So, the supply of life energy beyond time and beyond space as well, actually. That's where the primary source is, the eternal being, the eternal Father, the first source and centre of everything. Excuse me, I'm just having a little hiccup there. Yeah, eternity. So, the endless supply of life energy, as opposed to the limited amount of life energy that is initially imbued through the seed, or the, in our case, the fertilised egg, the embryo. A seed is an embryo, it's the same thing. Of course, we just call them seeds if they're on plants, and embryos if they're in animals. Same thing though, union of male and female gametes to form an organism that's going to turn into something complex. So, eternal life, we have eternal supply, and we have the organism of flesh and blood, which receives energy from the through the seed, but also may receive extra energy through the secondary system of the spirit, or the eternal supply, which an animal doesn't have. An animal or a plant, an ordinary animal or a plant, does not have an eternal supply. Well, I'll say that authoritatively as a teacher of the fifth of the great revelations of divinity to humanity, which has been published somewhat with some shit involved, but published in a book called the UrAnTia book. So check that out if you like. I will say now that from a spiritual perspective anyway, it is the greatest, by far, the greatest source of information on the spirit on this planet, by far, compared to whatever other teachings you might like to compare it to, whether it's the Toltec teachings of Mexico, or the Vedic teachings of India, or any occult teachings from ancient Egypt or anywhere else. Big statement, yes, I know that. I also know that that statement is apt to alienate many people from taking any further notice of anything that I have to say. But say it I do, and say it I shall, because this is my work to say this, as much as it is my work now to explain a little bit about some techniques of recharging your spiritual battery, which is your double, and of connecting with your spiritual battery, which is what meditation is also about. So I've mentioned the Toltec teachings, the teachings of Mexico brought brought forth by Carlos Castaneda and his colleagues, in particular Taisha Abelar and Florinda Grau. These books are available, easily available. You can find them quite easily. Taisha Abelar, Florinda Grau, and Carlos Castaneda. One of the main techniques presented by the Toltecs is a technique called recapitulation by them. It is a technique of regathering any energy that you have lost. Now, energy, you might think that if you give your energy away that it's just gone forever, that it just sort of disappears or diffuses into the infinite void or something. That's not actually so. That doesn't happen at all. Doesn't happen at all. It is able to be recaptured or regained. And you can do that through a breathing technique coupled with a mind technique, coupled with a focus of utilization of the fibers which are associated with the solar plexus, which is that place just below your sternum, you know, where you get butterflies if you're sort of having an attack of fear or nervousness. It's also during sexual intimacies. People, I don't know about homosexuals, but certainly heterosexuals, normal sexual intimacy. There's a merging between those two centres during the sexual intimate time together. And that can be felt. Sometimes it's just called afterwards. Anyway, you may have heard of the term entanglement, meaning the entanglement of energies and the entanglement of bits of energetic fibre or tendril or filaments between the two physical bodies, and it can be very much felt on an emotional level, which can be very strong and can be very debilitating, or it can be very helpful. Depends on who you've had intimacy with, of course, and what's going on in that other human being, that other human body. So I'll talk about this recapitulation first and foremost. It's, by the way, it's elucidated quite well by Taisha Abelar in her book The Sorcerer's Crossing, A Woman's Journey. And I would encourage anybody who wants to learn a very good technique to obtain that book and read it slowly, meditatively, so as to absorb and to begin to practice this wonderful technique. So I'm just going to briefly summarise here. It involves the switching between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, using the eyes and using the breath. Pranayama, which uses the alternating nostril technique. It's a similar sort of a technique. I don't use that. In fact, I can hardly use that because I've got terribly narrow nostrils and I can't breathe very well through my nose. And I find that I don't need to do that anyway. I do it with my eyes. So if you look to the left with your eyes and then look to the right with your eyes, you're favouring left and right sides. And when that's done in conjunction with breath in and breath out, breath in, what are you breathing in? The idea is you breathe in, you're breathing in, that's the feminine. You're breathing in, like with the left hand, receiving energy in with the left. You can use your hands as well in this if you like. Energy out with the right hand, energy out with the breath. So, while looking to the left and while being mindful or remembering, recapitulating means to go back to. So remembering somebody, a situation with somebody where you've given your energy away, or your energy has perhaps been stolen, either way, but somebody else has got your energy. They've still got it, and they'll have it until they die, unless they eject it themselves, or unless you pull it back from them. And this is about pulling it back from them. So with being aware of the midsection of your body as well. So here we go, we've got awareness with eyes, the left and the right sides, and with the solar plexus connecting. So you should be having an experience in your solar plexus while you're doing this. If you're not having any experience in your solar plexus while you're trying to do this, then you're actually not succeeding in doing it. So you must be able to connect there. So you think maybe of the situation, of the person in the situation, and you connect. You actually genuinely connect through space and time with that situation, with that person. You're connecting with that person wherever they are, even if they've moved on to another dimension, like if they've passed away from this physical body and gone into some etheric world or void, or wherever your energy is. It doesn't actually matter. You can pull it from anywhere in the universe. Fucking incredible, eh? You can pull it from anywhere in the universe. So this is about, well, I've already said that. So you're breathing in, you're connecting with your solar plexus, and you're breathing in, and you're moving your attention to the left side of your body. Left side of your eyeball, your left eyeball, which connects to the right hemisphere of the brain, incidentally. So you're moving with the left eyeball, and you're breathing in. You're breathing through your nose. You don't have to block a nostril though. You're just breathing in. You're just being conscious of receiving, bringing in. So it's all about feminine side, which is the left hand side, the yin side of the body. You're breathing in the energy. You're feeling it. You're bringing it in back into your solar plexus, which is where it's been taken from. Then on the out breath, you're moving to the masculine, the right hand side, and you're breathing out. And you're breathing out anything which is foreign. You're breathing out toxins. You're breathing out filaments of energy which maybe you have stolen from somebody. You don't want it. This is about so this is a purification. As well as regaining your energy, you're also purifying your body by getting rid of anything which is extraneous to you. If you're a woman and you've had sex with various different males, you've got the energy filaments of various different males in you, unless those filaments have been pulled out by a male that's practicing this technique. And you're being influenced by those energy filaments. Which is what that energy filament thing is all about. That's the ordinary natural system of tying a man and a woman together in parenthood, joint parenthood, and into their flesh is made one, so to speak, as in Christian terminology. Their energy has become one. They become one energy through this depositing of male energy via the, like just like semen is deposited in the female, also the masculine energy from the solar plexus is also deposited in the female through her solar plexus. So if you're a woman, that's like you're going to have a lot. If you've had, well, the more sex you've had with different men, the more of these filaments strange from all sorts of these different men you're going to have to get rid of. So you're breathing them out. You want to eject them. It doesn't matter where they go. If you eject them, it doesn't mean that man's not going to be able to regather his own energy if he wants to practice this himself. Like I said, it doesn't just diffuse into an infinite void. It floats around somehow, but it doesn't actually get destroyed. These filaments are like DNA. It's one of the most... DNA is like almost indestructible. The signature of the energetic signature of DNA seems to be almost indestructible. There's been modern day experiments done on that to prove that. Quite remarkable. All right. So recapitulation technique. There it is. I'm not going to try to do the whole thing for you here. Like I said, it's described in detail by Taisha Abelar in her book. Carlos Castaneda also talks about it in his book, The Active Side of Infinity, which is a summary. It's a summary of quite a few of his most important teachings. Alrighty. Another technique which I use, you could call it the infinity breath. It's like playing a didgeridoo. In playing a didgeridoo, one has to breathe in while one is blowing out. It's very difficult to do, but a didgeridoo player, a didge player, while he's pushing the air out with his cheeks through his lips into the didge, he's at the same time breathing in through his nose. And it's a very interesting thing. So it's sort of like, it's like two sine waves of consciousness. Sine wave, right? You do two together. Oh, see, I'm very shaky. Anyway, you get the idea. You do two together, poof. What do? You get a cancellation, you get a straight line, you get a flat line. No breath. So, notice that to get into this technique, so I might call it the no breath technique. I didn't invent it. I've learned this through, I think, yoga. It's a sort of like pranayama type technique again, but you don't have to do the nose thing. So when you go into meditation, you're doing a breath meditation, you enter into an awareness of your breathing and of what's going on, what you're doing with your intellect at the same time. You might find, as I have done, you probably will, unless you're quite unusual, you'll find that the energy sort of goes up and down with your diaphragm, with the expansion of your chest cavity. Though it's a part of the autonomous nervous system, it's not actually completely unconscious. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hold your breath, would you? Right? So there's a consciousness involved, and when you breathe out, you'll be experiencing one sort of consciousness. When you breathe in, you're experiencing a different sort of a consciousness. Sort of like that, you know, sort of, and the eyes register so much. So by being aware of what you're doing with your eyeballs, you can become very aware of what you're actually doing with your energy. Predators use their eyes to see things, and we have predator ancestry. That's why our eyes are at the front like this. Like all predators have eyes, binocular vision pointing bang straight ahead, right? Think of cats and in particular, and us. So here we have this non-breath concept of moving the consciousness in opposition to the actual physical part of your breathing. So if you're breathing in, try moving your consciousness to the right instead of to the left. And as you're breathing out, move your consciousness to the left instead of to the right. That's one way of doing it. At the point where the change happens, so you breathe in, you get to the change point. Now, be very aware of that. So hold your breath and be very, very aware. Be aware of that moment, that point of transition. And as you begin to breathe out, lift your eyebrows or something. Open your eyes. Instead of closing your eyes, open your eyes. And when breathing in, instead of opening your eyes, close your eyes. Normally you'd do that. Try doing this. You can practice these techniques quite physically like that for a little while, just to sort of get into a rhythm and to break all old patterns. In the end, what you end up with your consciousness just remains flatlined, steady, instead of going up and down, in and out with the movements of the body. So this is transcending your body, transcending your emotions, and you enter into stillness, and where you stop all of this intellectual activity, which is the problem, right? That just continuously goes. The mind that never shuts the fuck up, right? Pardon my French. The mind that never is quiet. It just goes and goes and goes. Unless you stop it. Or unless it's stopped somehow. Sometimes it can stop, you know, a dreadful fright, scary experience can cause you to stop breathing. Hold your breath. He's still holding his breath. Breathe, breathe, breathe. So, fear and breath and stillness. And you can pass out, you know, if you don't breathe, of course. You can faint if you don't breathe. And people faint from fear sometimes because they forget to breathe. The breathing actually stops. So that's the stillness. That's when the mind stops, and consciously this meditation technique is a very easy one to practice, I think. It's much easier than the recapitulation, you might say. Yeah, so there you go. There's two really powerful techniques. The rest is up to you to make time in your day to practice the techniques of stilling of bringing the mind to a state of rest in one case, and of regathering your energy and expelling foreign energy in the other case. Now the third one, which I haven't talked about, which I mentioned at the start, is actually connecting with the eternal source. Well, the great truth of the divine source is that the divine source is love. That doesn't mean going around being emotional about everybody or everything or every creature or every animal or anything like that. It's not about being emotional at all. It's about being beautiful, true, and divinely connected, and of extending that divine connection to another, one person at a time. Just one other person. Extend that to one other person and see how you go. You might get a message, you might have a realization, gee, I just can't extend love to that person. Okay, find somebody that you can extend that love to. A blessing. So if you think of divine love as a blessing, ask the Universal Father, the first source and centre, the absolute being. Ask for the blessing to be upon. So just like may your blessing be upon this one. And if you've hit the jackpot, if you're in line with the will of God, so if it's God's will to bless that person, and you will experience the blessing of that person in your heart. You'll experience that flow of divine love through your heart, which is the place, the portal that connects to the double, the energy body. And that flow of energy from the divine source through your energy body and through your physical body into the realm between yourself and somebody else. That flow is what will charge your energy body and also your physical body. Alrighty. Happy day. Talk to you again sometime. Thank you for tuning into my channel if you've managed to sit through this half-hour session. Practice the techniques. That's all I can say. Bye for now.